2 a.m. Not the romantic movie kind of 2 a.m., the very American kind of 2 a.m., where the whole house is so quiet you can practically hear the AC sighing and your own thoughts starting to say things you didn't invite. Alex is lying there, eyes wide open, and eventually does the thing everyone's done, even though they know they'll regret it, opens the bank app. It feels exactly like hitting refresh on your grades back in school. One tap, the loading screen, your heartbeat picks up just a little, and your brain automatically scrolls through every questionable financial decision you've made in the last few years, like it's reviewing security footage. Then the balance pops up. Not a disaster, but also not the kind of number that makes you want to turn on victory music and dance around the kitchen. It's the kind of number that makes you exhale and think, okay, at least I'm not dead. And then, like a reflex the internet has trained into all of us, Alex flips over to social media. A story in Cancun, golden sun blue water, a margarita the size of a salad bowl captioned something like, "We deserve this." Scroll. A new car day post with a giant red bow on the hood like they just gifted themselves a spaceship. Scroll again, kitchen remodel reveal, and the kitchen looks like a showroom where the main purpose is probably being a backdrop for photos, not actually cooking. The funny part is that online, everybody lives like a commercial. Not just doing well, but living like there's a production crew behind them. Perfect angles, perfect lighting, perfect smiles, and a life that looks like it gets upgraded every week. To the point where your real life suddenly feels like an outdated version, like the phone you're still using because it works fine while everyone around you has upgraded 3 times. And in that moment, a quiet question shows up. Have you ever watched someone's story and wondered if you're doing okay or falling behind, not in a petty, jealous way? In a genuine, where am I in this race that nobody gave me a map for kind of way? Just let that question sit there for a second because it's the starting point for everything today. In this video, I'm going to pull the curtain back and show you what normal money actually looks like in America using the kinds of stats most people avoid the way they avoid an email labeled important update. But more importantly, I'm going to show you how to read those numbers so you know where you stand and whether you're truly behind, or you're just comparing your real life to someone else's highlight reel that's being funded by a whole lot of easy monthly payments. If you want the truth in a way that's blunt but actually useful, hit like and subscribe. No need to make it dramatic. Just consider it choosing to watch something that might help you sleep a little better the next time it's 2 a.m. and you're staring at that bank app. And if you're wondering why that question shows up so fast, it's because you just ran into something. The modern brain is unbelievably good at confusing lifestyle and wealth. Online, those two things get packaged together in one pretty photo and one confident caption. But in real life, they're two lines that might run side by side, or they might be heading in completely opposite directions. Social media only shows outcomes. It shows the Cancun sunset, but it doesn't show the moment you open your credit card app and see minimum payment due. It shows new car day with the big red bow, but it doesn't show the 84-month contract and that little throat-tightening moment when you realize you just signed up for a longer commitment than a lot of marriages. It shows a brand new kitchen that looks like a showroom, but it doesn't show the third night in a row you stare at the bill and tell yourself, I'll make it up next month. Social media is where life looks smooth because the rough parts like payments, debt stress, and those tiny terrifying numbers called minimums got edited out of the frame. Here's the most important lens. So you don't get played. Lifestyle is not wealth. Lifestyle is something you can perform. Wealth is something you own even when nobody's watching. Lifestyle is an outfit. Wealth is the ability to take that outfit off anytime and still be fine. And the funny, slightly depressing truth is that lifestyle can be rented month to month. You can rent a car with a monthly payment. You can rent a vacation with a credit card. You can rent the feeling of, I'm really living with buy now, pay later with zero down with, it's only a little more per month. You can rent just about anything as long as you agree to pay it off over time, tack on interest, and convince yourself it's a well-deserved reward. If you've ever seen someone living like a movie, while their income doesn't sound remotely cinematic, this is probably how they're doing it. A lot of people aren't rich. They're just financed. And to keep you awake before we dive into the numbers, here's a quick little mini quiz. You don't have to say it out loud, just hold it in your head. What do you think the median American has saved for retirement? What's the first number that pops into your mind? Now, the second question, what do you think the average American household burns every month just to keep life running? Housing, food, transportation, all the stuff that doesn't magically disappear just because you're trying to live simpler? Hold those two numbers in your head. We'll come back to them, and you'll understand why the internet looks like a country full of millionaires, while real life looks like a country full of people paying off their own existence in installments. Let's start with the foundation income. Then we'll circle back to those two questions. Let's start with the foundation income. Because before we talk about saving, investing, or financial freedom, we need to deal with a slightly brutal truth: you can't optimize something if you don't even know what it actually is. And a lot of people in America are walking around with an imaginary number in their head while the real number is sitting in the corner of the room smirking. Based on data for full-time workers, the median income in the U.S. is around $52,000 a year before taxes. Sounds fine. $52,000 is the kind of number that makes you feel like a real adult. It's enough to say, I have a career. Enough to confidently add guac at Chipotle and not feel guilty for a solid 45 seconds. But then payday shows up and you realize $52,000 is basically the number designed to make you happy before reality walks in. Because your paycheck looks pretty full at first, like a big sandwich promising a stable life, and then taxes and deductions roll in like a flock of seagulls at the beach. They don't take a polite little bite. They swoop in and go to work like it's their God-given right. Federal taxes, state taxes depend on where you live, then Social Security, Medicare, and suddenly that nice clean $52,000 turns into a very different take-home reality somewhere around $35,000 to $40,000 a year depending on your state, your city, your withholdings, and whether you live in a place where stepping outside for one coffee makes your wallet physically recoil. And that's real life, because nobody pays rent with before tax. Nobody pays the electric bill with before tax. Your landlord doesn't care what your gross is. Your landlord cares whether money hits their account on the right day. The grocery store is the same way. They don't accept payment in the form of your confidence in future earning potential. They accept cash. Now let me make one important logic point so everything doesn't get twisted later. That $52,000 number is individual full-time income, not household income. A household might have two earners, or one earner and one stay-at-home parent, or any combination that still results in the bills showing up like clockwork. If you've got two incomes, you can breathe a little easier because the burn rate gets split. If you've got one income trying to carry household-level expenses, that feeling of suffocation isn't because you're bad with money. It's math. You're playing the same game with fewer bullets. Alex is right around that median, not the lowest income, not unemployed, just planted smack in the middle of the crowd, and suddenly that feeling of I work nonstop and nothing ever piles up makes a lot more sense when you look at the actual take-home number, not the shiny before-tax number that's basically for display. And here's the tease before we move to the next part. The problem isn't just how much you make. The problem is how much is getting burned every single month just to exist in normal mode. Not rich mode, not luxury mode, just life running without breaking mode. And this is the part that makes a lot of people feel like they're bad with money, when in reality they're just getting run over every month by a very simple machine. That machine is your burn rate, the speed at which you torch cash just to keep life running in normal mode. According to spending data, the average American household spends about $5,577 per month. Let me say that again so it lands per month. Multiply that out and you're looking at roughly $67,000 a year. And right here we need a really clean logic bridge because otherwise this starts looking like bad math. That spending number is household. The $52,000 we talked about earlier was individual income. Spending is a household because life sends bills as a bundle. Rent doesn't ask whether you live alone or with a partner. It just shows up on the first like it's got a calendar and a grudge. Your electric bill doesn't care that you're optimizing your budget, it still runs. If you've got two incomes in the house, you can split the load and it hurts less. If you've got one income, trying to carry a household-level burn rate feeling tired is the correct response. That's not a discipline problem. That's you trying to push a pickup truck with one arm and then blaming yourself for not being strong enough. Now let's peel back the three biggest chunks so you can see why it feels suffocating. First up, Housing around $1,885 a month on average. And yes, if you live in New York or San Francisco, that number sounds like a fairy tale. 1,800 bucks out there can be a closet with a window, and you have to bring your own hope for decoration. But average is average, and no matter where you live, housing is usually the biggest expense because it's the price of keeping your stuff inside a structure that has a roof. Second, food, about $691 a month. Groceries, eating out the occasional "I deserve this" meal. If you're below that, either you're doing something right or you've elevated ramen to an art form. Third, transportation, about $913 a month. And this is where your car proves it's not just a vehicle, it's a whole ecosystem. Payment, insurance, gas, maintenance, registration, little random fees, everything stacks into one number that you don't fully respect until you try living a month without it and suddenly feel like you found money in a jacket you forgot you owned. Now add just housing and transportation together. You're already close to $2,800 a month. And that's before you eat, before utilities, before anything fun, and definitely before you invest in your future. That right there is your monthly burn rate. The amount you have to light on fire every single month just to exist in the modern world. And when your burn rate is high, you fall into what I call the fixed costs trap. Because when most of your money is locked into must-pay bills, a small problem stops being an inconvenience and turns into a crisis. One car repair, one surprise medical bill, 1 week of reduced hours, an insurance increase. Each one is a gentle shove, except you're already standing on the edge because fixed costs took up all the standing room. Alex feels this in a very real way. After housing the car payment, insurance, gas, and the monthly charges nobody remembers the name of, but somehow always show up, what's left for saving and investing is as thin as the last few fries at the bottom of the bag. It technically exists, but there's so little of it that you start questioning physics. And if anything touches it, an unexpected bill, for example, it disappears and you're back in "I'll start next month" mode. Try a quick calculation in your head. Don't say it out loud. Add your housing and transportation together and ask yourself how much of your life they're eating every month. Not just the percentage on paper, how much peace they eat, how much no. You're allowed to say how much future you're able to build. Because once you see that number, you'll understand why so many people aren't lazy, aren't stupid, and still feel like they're running on a treadmill where someone keeps turning the speed up every year. And here's the pivot point for the whole picture. Up to now, a lot of people tell their money story like this: I just need to make more. And that sounds reasonable because everyone feels like more money would make everything easier to breathe. But the moment you put income next to burn rate, you start to see a truth that's both uncomfortable and incredibly useful. This is the big reveal. Most Americans aren't broke because they don't earn money. They're broke because a high burn rate plus high interest debt keeps their money from ever getting the chance to grow. Money comes in, money goes out, and whatever's left gets chewed up by interest like termites in a wooden beam. Sure, you can increase your income. But if the math of your life is set up to burn most of your take-home and then slap a 20% interest layer on anything that falls short, you're not building anything. You're just maintaining an expensive breathing pattern. And here we need one more clean logic bridge because there's a very common misunderstanding that tricks people into thinking they're fine. It's their credit score. Your credit score measures whether you pay your debt on time. It does not measure whether you're rich. It does not measure whether you're free. It measures how organized of a borrower you are, which means you can have a gorgeous credit score and still be sinking. Those two things don't conflict. It's like having a clean-looking health report while eating fried food every day. You just haven't gotten the public pushback yet. The average FICO score in the US is around 715. That sounds good. It sounds like everyone is disciplined. But a lot of people are simply good at one skill: rotating debt on schedule. They make the minimum payment on time. They keep utilization in an acceptable range. They avoid getting punished. And the system loves that because it's how the system makes money without having to be loud about it. Now here's the number that makes the whole picture feel real. The average household carries over $9,000 in credit card debt, and interest rates are often somewhere between 15% and 25%. Do a little calculation you can't unsee. $9,000 times 20% is $1,800 a year. Just interested, not principal, just the fee for being allowed to carry that debt into next year. That $1,800 is a few months of groceries for a lot of families, or a stack of utility bills, or the exact amount you keep promising yourself you'll start saving next month. Alex isn't a reckless spender. Alex isn't buying a yacht with a credit card. But all it takes is one or two emergencies, one car repair, one medical bill, 1 week of reduced hours, and the credit card turns into a life raft. The problem is that this life raft is made of lead. It keeps you afloat in the exact moment you need it, and then it drags you down slowly month after month through interest and minimum payments. So if you've ever wondered why you feel stuck, even though you're not lazy, even though you show up to work, even though you're trying, this is why. It's not a motivation problem. It's the math working against you a little bit at a time until it turns into a whole life. Let's see where the crowd is by age. Not so you can turn this into a weird financial flex contest, but so you understand something important. If you feel behind, there's a good chance you're not looking at the right baseline. Because the average retirement baseline in America, the polite way to say it is thin, the honest way to say it is concerning. Based on recent surveys, the median amount Americans have saved for retirement is around $65,000. That sounds decent at first, right? 65 grand sounds like real money, enough to make you think, okay, people are saving something. But then you look at the detail that comes stapled to that number, and it feels like a slightly evil plot twist. About 25% of Americans don't even have a retirement account. Not low, not behind, zero. 1 out of every 4 people is walking into the future with a plan that basically amounts to, I'm sure it'll work out, which is famously a flawless strategy in every area of life, from health to bald tires. Now break it down by age, and it starts reading like a life story written in account balances. People under 25 have a median balance of under $2,000. And honestly, at that age, that's not a disaster. You're just getting started, and time is more valuable than the starting amount. If you're 23 and you've already got a couple of grand in a retirement account, you're doing better than a lot of people your age who are investing heavily in two other things: experiences and debt. Then you hit the 25 to 34 group with a median around $14,000. This is where the story starts to get tense, because this is the stage where a lot of people have been working for a few years, income is stabilizing, and lifestyle is getting more expensive at the exact same time. 14 grand isn't nothing, but it's the kind of number that makes you pause and think, if I keep going like this, am I building a future? Or am I just paying a membership fee to live in the present? Compound interest is a miracle, yes. But miracles don't work great when you only feed them crumbs. And then you get to 65 and older with a median of around $88,000. This is the real shocker. A lot of people hear $88,000 and think, that's not bad. But put it into real-life terms using the classic 4% rule. 4% of $88,000 is about $3,500 a year. That's under $300 a month. $300 a month. That's not retirement. That's a monthly allowance to help you pretend you have a plan, unless you're living off sunlight, drinking wind, and somehow buying medication at 1984 prices. This is where the most important mindset shift kicks in. Retirement isn't an age. It's a number. Nobody hands you a stable life just because you hit your 65th birthday. The real question is, what kind of retirement budget you want: survival or options? Survival means you count every bill and pray nothing goes wrong. Options mean you have breathing room, you can say no, and your hands don't start shaking every time you hear the words medical bill. Alex is 30, sees that $14,000 number, and for the first time realizes, I'm not cursed. I just need to change the game early. Not with magic. With math that works for me instead of against me. And that's also why so many people put all their hope in Social Security, like it's a miracle umbrella that's going to pop open right when it starts raining. The only problem is, that umbrella might be a lot smaller than people think. And this is where Social Security walks into the story like the supporting character everyone expects to save the whole movie. A lot of people treat it like the default life raft, like I worked my whole life. Surely there's going to be something waiting for me, and there is. The only issue is that the something is usually a lot smaller than the version people carry around in their heads. The average Social Security benefit is around $1,550 a month. And at first glance, that sounds workable, especially if you picture yourself with the house paid off, the kids' grown life simpler. But that's an average, and average means plenty of people get less. If you had years with lower income time, out of the workforce, part-time work, or you just never earned much to begin with, that number can drop fast. Social Security isn't a generous gift, it's a formula. And formulas don't care how anxious you are about the outcome. Now, here's the part most people don't think about until it smacks them in the face. The average retirement age in the US is around 61, but full benefits for a lot of people don't kick in until around 67. That means there's a gap of about 6 years. 6 years, not the kind of gap you figure out real quick. 6 years is long enough for a brand new car to go from showroom fresh to mysteriously making noises you swear weren't there last month. And you need to build a financial bridge across that gap out of something real: savings, investments, side income, or an actual plan that doesn't rely on wishful thinking. Then add longevity to the equation. If someone makes it to 65, the stats say they're likely to live another 19 to 21 years, which means retirement can easily stretch 20 to 25 years depending on when you stop working. 25 years is a long chapter, longer than a lot of people have been working up to that point. And here's the deeper part. Most people avoid thinking about not every year of retirement is the same. There are healthy years and there are later years. There's a season where you can travel, see friends, and actually enjoy life. And then there's the season where your calendar starts filling up with less exciting stuff like doctor appointments and medication refills. So the real question isn't just whether you have enough money to survive that long. It's whether you'll have money while you're still healthy enough to actually use it, or whether you're saving it for the stage of life where your biggest adventure is making it to the pharmacy before it closes. Alex imagines trying to bridge that 6 year gap without enough savings, and the best word for it is suffocating. Not because of laziness, not because of weak willpower, because math doesn't negotiate. And if you're hearing these numbers and you feel a little uncomfortable, that's a good sign. It means you're looking straight at reality. And you only get to change the outcome when you're willing to look at it before your plan turns into a 25-year-long strategy called "I hope it works out." If you're feeling a little heavy-headed right now or slightly uncomfortable in that, "oh, this is about me" kind of way, that's good. That's a normal reaction when you actually look at the numbers most people avoid looking at, like avoiding the scale after the holidays. But let me be clear, this isn't a video to judge you. You're not bad with money in some moral sense. You're not a failure because you didn't perfectly optimize your life like a spreadsheet. You're living in a system where a high burn rate is the default, high interest debt is always waiting to finish the job, and social media makes it look like everyone's living in a penthouse while a lot of people are literally financing the elevator ride. The good news is the average in personal finance isn't some terrifying beast. It's more like a very low bar, so low that if you clear a few boring steps, you're already over it. And yes, I'm using the word boring as a compliment because real wealth is almost never interesting to watch. It's just quietly effective. First, know your burn rate, especially housing and transportation, and put a ceiling on it. Not to punish yourself, but to give yourself breathing room. If those two categories are eating your entire take-home, you don't need more motivation. You need more margin. Second, kill credit card debt before you try to invest for fun. No logic beats 20% interest. No index fund is magical enough to let you pay credit card interest with one hand while patting yourself on the back with the other because you're investing. Third, automate investing into simple index funds the way you automate a good bill. It doesn't have to be dramatic. The point is that it happens even when you're busy, even when you forget, even when life is draining your energy and you're operating on fumes. Fourth, raise your savings rate above the average 6%. If you aim for 10% to 15% depending on your goals, you're doing what the crowd isn't doing, and that's the only way to get a different result than the crowd. Fifth stop, comparing your real life to someone else's finance lifestyle. Because you're not seeing the payment, the minimum due, the stress, the "I'll make it up next month." You're just seeing Cancun. And that's the final callback. The next time Cancun, a new car, or a kitchen reveal slides across your screen, you'll understand the picture isn't the whole story. You won't need to ask if you're falling behind. You'll ask a better question: is what I'm looking at wealth? Or is it just lifestyle being rented month to month? Looking rich is easy. Being rich is a little boring, but the trade-off is freedom.